Uh, I've been doing math contests since maybe like first grade. Done also a lot of stuff involving like math circles. Attended a few of like the Julia Robinson math festivals, and then last year I was the Limerick Math Club president. And so I'm going to be talking about the various like math opportunities in terms of contests, research, programs, and so forth that are available to everyone. Mostly pertaining to middle and high school, but I'll touch a bit on the elementary school stuff. So without further ado, these are the main math classes that, at least the first six are generally what's...
声音要大一点，后边。
So the first six classes are generally what most, at least high achieving math students will take throughout the course of your middle and high school. And especially for those that are involved in competitive math, it's highly recommended that you skip at least one extra year. So the ideal class branch you'd probably take is Algebra 1 and Geometry in 7th and 8th grade of middle school. And then freshman or sophomore year, I would recommend skipping either Algebra 2 Trigonometry or Pre-Calculus, because at most schools they tend to overlap the material a lot, and there's very few differences between the two classes. For example, Pre-Calc just has the addition of a little calculus in the form of derivatives and limits. But I personally skipped Algebra 2 Trigonometry and went straight to Pre-Calculus as a freshman. There's a lot of people that have also skipped both of them and just gone straight to AP Calculus as a freshman. And a lot of the times the main worry I've heard from talking with parents is that they're worried that they won't be able to keep up with the class. But if you've had a history of competition math, like doing well in math counts or AMC and so forth, you can handle the math skip as long as you're attentive in class. Because it's not math, although it gets more complex, when you're good at math from the beginning with a good base, like math counts, for example, it carries over to the upper tier math classes. And then if you skipped, you usually would follow up with community college courses such as multivariable calculus, differential equations, or linear algebra, and you can convert these into college credit and skip those classes when taking math in college as well. So for me, I took up to multivariable calculus. I had a friend that finished the entire math program at West Valley College while at Lynbrook, and then she just started at the upper division courses for MIT math program when she went to MIT. And usually you'd be expected to, if you're good at math, you'd probably be taking at the very minimum AP Statistics if you're not skipping. But then a lot of people move on to take college courses because it helps for credit as well. And so the most common way for people to get involved in math is usually joining the math club or math team, because that usually opens you up to meeting a lot of people that are also like-minded in math and also wish to seek success in competitions. And usually for most schools, the math club also has multiple contests that aren't open to anyone else that normally just attends the school. And I can't speak for other schools necessarily, but for Lynbrook, for example, we offer a few contests like Camel and AMC to everyone at Lynbrook, but then certain contests like Stanford Math Tournament are only exclusively available to math club members if they wish to attend. And usually the style of the math club varies per school, but usually they'd be covering different math topics that you wouldn't learn in your math class. For example, counting and probability is not very heavily emphasized in the high school curriculum, and most math clubs do a good job of covering that and going a lot more in depth than you would just through learning it in Algebra 2 Trig or Pre-Calculus. And you can also definitely meet a lot of people who tend to be better than you at math, and it's just a good way to learn and just practice together. And so math camps and there's a plethora of these. Art of Problem Solving has lists of like 20 to 50 more programs that I can't even name. And a lot of these vary, but the timing for most of these is usually during the summer or winter during break. And the lengths of these will vary from being 2 weeks long to potentially a month, if not more. And their programs vary, so I would recommend if you're really interested in participating in one of these programs, that you would just go to the website, see the kind of activities, maybe talk to a few friends if they've attended the program before, just to get a feel of what's it like. Usually they involve studying math or taking classes for somewhere between 3 to 6 hours in the morning. Then you might have an afternoon session which is composed of a different math field. So you could be learning counting in the morning and then number theory in the afternoon. And then they usually fill it up the remainder of the time with activities just to get to know each other better. And a lot of these can be relatively costly because they are camps that you're staying overnight at. For example, I think AMSP was held at UC Santa Cruz. I don't know if it was this year, but in previous years it's been held at UC Santa Cruz for, I think, a month. So you just get to meet a lot of other fellow like-minded math students as well, similar to the math club and math team. And I've talked to a lot of my friends that have done these programs. Personally, I never did because I didn't have the time to do it, nor did my parents want to spend the money for it, since some of these can be relatively costly. But their testimonies definitely were really encouraging, and I know that if I had the opportunities to do the camps, I would have. And you can learn, it definitely helps a lot for preparation for contests. Some of these are geared specifically for prepping for the contests. For example, A-STARS math programs tend to be geared towards AMC and USIMO prep. But then others, for example, some of them that aren't listed here, that tend to be more a math science camp like Cosmos and RSI, can offer research opportunities as well, in addition to just learning about math necessarily. And also some of these may have qualifying tests. I know Idea Math and Math Camp have, and AMSP I believe, have qualifying math tests. Usually they're pretty generous about it. They just want to see what base knowledge of math you have, whether you're accustomed to writing proofs and so forth. And it doesn't hurt to try it because it's just a good way to get more math experience, whether you go to the program or not. And then math circles they aren't necessarily as commonly talked about now. They used to be a lot bigger a few years back, but these are weekly programs held at Stanford, Berkeley, and San Jose State University. I've attended all three of these, and basically once a week they'd have a professor or an esteemed mathematician give a talk on a field or subject of their choice. So there's been stuff like Abel notation, Lagrange numbers, and so forth. And it's also a good way to meet other people in the area that also attend these circles, and I know a lot of them have gone on to great success. And I've seen a lot of the people that attended math circles at a variety of the math competitions I've been at. And usually I think some of these are free, but they usually request like $100 donations per semester. So, and then it just comes down to you being able to make the weekly meetings. If I recall correctly, I think Berkeley is still on Tuesdays, once a week, and San Jose State is on Wednesdays, and I believe Stanford's on Thursdays. And you can just search their website up, and they'll have more info about meetings and joining the schedule. And then lastly is so this is more common once you're in junior and senior year. Math research is a lot rarer than it appears compared to bio research or coding research, for example, just because math research is extremely difficult. So I have a huge word of caution for this, because math research, as I've talked to several of my friends that have won a semifinalist or finalist in Intel Science Talent Search for doing math research, a lot of it entails first being very proficient at math. I recommend you'd have to be at the very minimum USIMO or JMO by 9th, 10th grade, because math research requires a year afterwards, approximately a year, to put together the research for a project. And so what math research entails is picking a problem that's generally been unsolved so far, and then attempting to solve it. And that can be very difficult given how many esteemed mathematicians there are that have attempted these varieties of problems. Usually you'd contact a mentor or some professor for research help. And so, for example, the guy mentioned here, Simon Rubinstein Salzado, he's relatively famous in the math community because if you've done some competitive math like math counts, you might have heard of Simon's favorite factoring trick, which he invented back in 2003. And so he's willing to do research currently with anyone in the Bay Area that's interested, but you need to contact him and show that you're already extremely proficient in math. So it's definitely an opportunity that I would recommend, but math research is, as mentioned before, it's really difficult because you're tackling an unknown problem. Even if you have the help of someone who's a brilliant mathematician, my friends they described math research as you'd spend 8 to 9 months tackling a ridiculously hard problem, trying as many methods as you can once a week, getting nowhere with it, and then all of a sudden one day you happen to try the method that works and your solution works, so then you can submit your paper and then you receive usually semifinalists at minimum for the Intel Talent Search. But then there's definitely a lot more people that have tried for 8-9 months, got in nowhere, and then because they didn't get anywhere, they weren't able to submit their research. So in essence, you could say it was a year of frustration and futile attempts to solve the problem. And so one of the organizations that's also promoting research is known as the Euler Circle, and it's a series of advanced mathematics classes. I think they're starting with talking about abstract algebra this fall, and it's offered for 2 hours for 2 days a week, I think Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And if you're interested in registering, you should search them up. And registration is due, I think, July 15th for the fall session this year. But I know I would have done this if it was available last year, because it only started this year. And then finally, the biggest way to get involved in math, especially in middle high school, is math contests. And this is probably what a majority of you are here for. It's mostly what I did throughout high school. And you can win a variety of prizes, but then also it's just a great experience getting to practice your math knowledge, get to meet other people that are just as good as you, if not better, at math, and then really just bond together through these competitions. So the first competition that's really available to everyone is known as MOEMs, or Math Olympiads. Almost everyone has pretty much done this in the group, I believe, based on the responses. And these are available for kindergarten all the way to 6th grade. And generally though, it's kindergarten through 8th grade, but usually it's 4th graders and 5th graders in elementary school, and then 6th, 7th, 8th graders in middle school that participate in these. These are, I believe they're composed of 6 rounds of 5 to 6 problems each, and you have usually around 30 minutes to solve the problems, and they tend to be word problem based. And MOEMS is generally considered one of the easiest competitions because it's geared for kids at such a young age, and it's usually one of the first rounds of exposure you'll get to math contests. And then the second, that's also available to elementary school kids, but this is actually available to from all grades from kindergarten all the way to 12th grade, is Math Kangaroo. It's held once a year, and I believe you just register online on the website. I personally haven't done this myself, but I know a lot of people that have. And it's considered a relatively easy test. I believe it's 25 questions in 75 minutes for elementary school, and then middle and high school have 30 questions in 75 minutes. The problems are pretty easy. I don't think you get calculators though. And then you can win like some t-shirts and certificates, I believe, as prizes. And then Camel is one of the easiest high school math contests. This contest is composed of 6 rounds of 6 questions each. And from what I know, almost all high schools in the Bay Area offer this as one of their complimentary contests. The difficulty is not relatively too hard, and you're allowed calculators on it. And if you place as a top individual, you can win, I believe, plaques and prizes for the contest. Purple Comet also not necessarily as known as some of the other contests, just because this is a purely online contest, and you form teams of 6 to enter this test. And the only rule is you can use any computer resource, so you could program any math problems you wanted to solve. You can use your calculators, as long as you do not use the internet for any resources. And you have 90 minutes to solve approximately 30 questions, and then you're sorted based in your results are based on the size of your school, as well as whether it's a middle or high school. And then, although this is an online contest, because it's self-enforced, there's no official prizes, but it's definitely a good source of practice, because some of the problems can be somewhat challenging at times, and it just promotes working as a team and splitting up problems and dividing tasks for each other. Interstellar is a relatively new contest. It started last year. A lot of schools may not necessarily have it right now. I know Lynbrook, Harker School, Gunn, I believe Monte Vista have the contest right now. I can't say necessarily for others, because right now on the back end the contest is extremely costly to manage. I think we paid $300 to enter Lynbrook last year. So, and there's not really many prizes yet. So right now it's pretty low key, but this is a high school contest akin to math counts in the fact that it requires a lot of speed. each school submits a team of 5 to 10 people to answer questions all at the same time. And they'll take the total number of questions you solve correctly, as well as the total time you guys spent on all 10 questions, and compare it to that of the other team. And the team with the higher score and faster time wins. And then it's sort of like a March Madness-esque tournament for math. And it's an elimination bracket, and I know Harker School has won now 2 years in a row, but Lynbrook definitely came close, and it's definitely one of the more exciting matches to watch, because if you've already finished your 10 problems and you're waiting on your teammates, everyone's just watching them, hoping that they'll get the question right and quickly enough. And calculators are allowed on this contest. Santa Clara University Math Contest is once a year held at Santa Clara University, and it's a proof contest where they ask around 6 to 7 questions, and you're recommended to provide explanations for how you solve or prove each problem. And so this is very good practice especially for those aspiring to take the USAMO or USAGMO contest. And I think they might have cash prizes, especially if you win grand prize. And it's definitely it's a free contest, and it's just good exposure for those that aren't accustomed to proof contests, which overtake most of the math contests once you get to the highest levels of math. Math Counts is probably the biggest the middle school math contest and almost everyone has heard of it. I know there's a lot of competition in the Bay Area, especially for this contest. And it's a middle school contest with 4 different rounds. The first round is known as the sprint round. It's where you have 30 questions in 40 minutes. And then the second round is the target round, where you're doing pairs of questions with 6 minutes per pair, and you're given calculators. And then they also have a team round, where 4 members from your school work together as a team to solve 10 questions in 20 minutes with calculators. And then the sprint and target round form your individual score. And then your team round composes, along with your individual score, your team score for your school or state once it gets to the national level. And then there's also a countdown round where you do head-to-head math, trying to solve a problem first and solve it correctly. And California is extremely competitive in math counts. 1 year ago, one individual from California, Swapnil Garg, won first place nationally. And then at the national level, you can win a lot of cash prizes. I think he got about 8,000 total in cash prizes for winning first place. And then California has placed first place as a team nationally many times as well. And this is one of the biggest ways to get involved in math. It was definitely big for me in middle school, and I'm pretty sure most middle schools will have a team. The tryouts can be rather cutthroat at times and rather difficult to participate in. But if you do well in math counts, it generally prepares you well for high school contests like AMC and so forth. Math League is the counterpart to Math Counts. They do middle school and high school Math Counts-esque competitions. The middle school competitions are in the same structure as Math Counts is, so it's really, most middle school people aspiring to do well in Math Counts do Math League as well to practice for the contests. They also offer a lot of plaques and trophies as prizes for maybe a $10 entrance fee or so. And then the high school contests are still relatively similar to the middle school contests, but these are more in preparation for the national ARML competition. So the sprint round changes to be it's still 30 questions, but this time calculators are allowed, unlike in Math Counts. And then the target round is still 5 pairs of 2 questions each. So for 10 questions in total, without calculators allowed on this. And then they still have a team round, but then they also add in a power round where you're writing proofs and as a team solve roughly 10 proof questions in about 45 minutes to an hour. And then they also have, instead of the countdown round of head-to-head math, they have something known as the relay round, where you're working in a group of 3 to solve a question, except for the fact that so there's 3 questions total for the one question per person, and the first person's question is a normal math question, but the second person's and third person's questions all require using the answer of the first person and then the second person to solve the following question. So for example, if the first person's question is what's 3 plus 5? 8. The second person's question could be like, let T be the answer to the first person's question, and then they'll have a word problem or something with T involved and ask you to find the answer. So the first person would solve his answer of 8 and pass a slip of paper with the answer 8 to the next person, who would then solve this question and then pass a slip of paper with his answer to the third person who submits his answer within 6 minutes for points. So it's definitely a different format, and this is necessary to prepare for ARML. And math leagues for middle school are still really popular because they go hand in hand with math counts. While at the high school level, they've fallen a bit out of favor, but that's mostly because people are busy in high school. And they're still around for sure if you wish to participate and win plaques or trophies, as well as get good math practice. And then AMC is probably just the biggest math competition there is in the US. Middle school students usually participate in it through AMC 8 and then AMC 10. High school participates through it through AMC 10 and 12. So it's a 25 question there's 25 questions on the AMC at all difficulties. For AMC 8 you have 40 minutes to solve these 25 questions. And then AMC 10 and 12 you have 75 minutes to solve the questions. Most middle schools use AMC 8 as the way of determining who can take AMC 10. Usually if you score like 20 or higher, they'll let you take AMC 10. But then even if you don't qualify through AMC 8, there's places like Stanford or Lynbrook or Harker or other programs like IB Max that will let you pay, and then you can take the AMC 10 or 12 tests at their site. But I would just I just want to warn you, because some of these sites can overcharge. I don't know if it was IB Max. I think it was IB Max that charged $30 to take the AMC 10B at their site, and that's ridiculously expensive. Whereas Stanford would charge you like $3 to $5 maximum to take the contest. But the registration starts really early. Since the contest is in February, I would recommend trying to register in January if possible, because spaces tend to fill up ridiculously fast, especially once the contest date nears. And there's two different tests, the AMC 1012A and the AMC 1012B. They're pretty much just two different chances to improve your score and qualify for the AMY. To qualify for the AMY contest, AMC 10 you have to score at least 120 out of 150, so that's usually around 20 out of 25 with some exceptions due to their scoring system. Or score in the top 5% of the nation. And then for AMC 12, you need a score of 100 out of 150, where each question solved correctly is 6 points, each question left blank is 1.5 points, and then each question answered incorrectly is 0 points. So it's roughly about 20 questions for AMC 10 and roughly 16 to 17 questions answered right for the AMC 12. And most people, so AMC 10 is only limited to those 10th grade and below. Likewise, AMC 12 is limited to those 12th grade and below, so anyone can take AMC 12, though it's recommended to take AMC 10 because it tends to be a bit easier. And these are necessary to qualify for the AMY, which I'll discuss later on. Power ARML is generally considered a notch somewhat below AMY. It's open to most high schools, and I think Stanford Math Circle and as well as SFBA offers a Power ARML if you're interested in participating. It's a proof contest where you're working as a team of 10, 20, 30, 40 people to write up solutions and explanations to about 20 total subproblems. And so proofs are a lot different from your typical contest math, like math counts, where you just take your question, you solve it, you provide your answer, that's the all. Whereas proofs, you have to provide an explanation of how you got to that answer, why your justification is right, and how to make it rigorous or valid for certain questions. And so this is one of the ways to practice writing your solutions instead of just providing an answer. And the prizes can be like plaques for the schools, and I would just recommend asking your school's math club or math team about entering this. If not, I know San Francisco Bay Area's ARML team also offers it, so there's definitely ways to get involved in this. And generally the cost is free for the individual. SCVMA is, it's not as big as middle schools now as it used to be, but it's still pretty big in high schools. There's a fair amount of high schools that participate in it, and there's also a fair amount that don't. So I know Lynbrook Palo Alto, Gun, Saratoga are some of the biggest participants in SCVMA, and it's composed of a variety of math contests based on which math class you're in. Like they have tests for algebra, geometry, algebra 2 trig, all the way up to statistics. And then so if you participate in those, it's approximately a 1.5 hour 60 question test, and then you can win trophies and medals. And then there's also a test known as the leapfrog test, where you're partnered with a teammate and you're trying to solve 25 questions in an hour and a half. And then finally there's a discovery test, which is a proof contest, and it's akin to BAMO, somewhat below the level of USUMO or JMO, and you're solving 7 questions in 2 hours. And they all offer trophies and plaques at all levels, and then at the highest level for discovery, you can win cash prizes of up to, I believe, $300 for first place. And so if your school doesn't participate in it already, I would recommend asking them to participate, because this is also a good way just to meet a lot more people from other schools, as well as just practice your math, which is the main goal of a lot of the math contests. And if you're good, you can win the prizes and as well as cash. ARMO Local is similar to the Math League high school contest, which I discussed already, where there's the individual round. The individual round here is composed of just 5 pairs of 2 questions for 10 questions with 10 minutes per pair. So in total, it would take 50 minutes for the individual round. And then there's also a team round where you work together to solve, I don't even remember, I think 20 to 25 questions. I believe 20 questions in about an hour. And then there's also a relay, the relays that's mentioned earlier, with different size relays from 2 people, 3 people, and 6 people. And then you can win cash prizes and calculators for doing well in ARMO Local, and the cost is generally free or really low. And I know both the San Francisco Bay Area ARMO team offers it, as well as A-Star. So if you're interested, I'd recommend finding a team of 6 people or so that you know can do well, and then enter the team, and you can win some free calculators. AMY is the next step after AMC 10 and 12. Usually you qualify for AMY through AMC 10, 12. There's also a few other contests that you can qualify to AMY through. For example, the USA Mathematical Talent Search, which I think I'll discuss later. And so AMY is a 15-question, 3-hour math contest, and the questions start out generally being around AMC 10, 12 medium level, and then they get really hard by the end of the 15 questions. And this is necessary to qualify for the USUMO and USAGMO math contests, which are composed of your AMC 10, 12, and your AMY score. And the contest is rather lengthy, and this is generally your first exposure at truly competitive math, as this is where the math gets really hard. And generally it's a good honor to qualify through it throughout high school. I know colleges look at it whether you've at least just qualified for it, so that tends to be a goal of many high school students. And it's definitely an honor, especially if you start qualifying as a middle schooler for AMY, and then even onwards for USAGMO and USUMO. And so the format of AMY is that the answers are all integers that range from 0 to 999. So if you really want to think of it as a multiple choice test, you could, where there's 1,000 options for your multiple choice. So generally, most people strive to aim for at least somewhere between an 8 to 10 score, and that's generally not the easiest score, but it's definitely doable, and that will usually qualify you for the USAGMO USUMO test. BAMO is known as the Bay Area Math Olympiad. It's held once a year in February at various places. I know San Jose State used to offer it. I believe they still do. A lot of high schools offer it too. It's a proof contest and it's divided into 2 contests, the BAMO 8 and the BAMO 12. BAMO 8 is open to those 8th grade and below. BAMO 12 is open to anyone who wishes to participate in it. And I know there was an 8th grader that won first place at BAMO 12 1 or 2 years ago. And it's a proof contest, so you have 4 hours to solve 4 questions for BAMO 8, or 4 hours for 5 questions for BAMO 12. And the problems generally take a lot of thinking, and you usually can't just look at it and solve it instantly, and they're trying to encourage you to look at a hard problem, try various angles, and then usually one of those solutions will work for solving the problem. And then once you've solved the problem, then you can write your solution. And if you write a good solution and justification, you'll receive full credit. And a lot of people participate in this because you can win a lot of free t-shirts and books if you do well in BAMO. And at the highest level, you can win trophies and very large cash prizes for placing in BAMO. I know 2 students at Lynbrook got $314 last year, or this past year, just for placing first place at BAMO. And I would highly recommend doing this, especially if you plan to do well at the USAGMO or USMO math contest level, because this is probably the next most difficult proof contest there is in comparison to those two. NIMO and OMO are online math contests held monthly by these ex-math students in the Bay Area that are now at MIT. And so they make the problems and publish them once a month. And you can submit your problems, and if you do well, you can win free Amazon gift cards ranging from $25 to $100, I believe. So it's generally just good practice if you have the time to take the contest. And the math problems can be very ranging in difficulty, but usually they're approximately around Amy level difficulty, and you can win. I know I won my fair share of Amazon gift cards, which was pretty nice. So this is one of those contests that you can actually get pretty easily obtainable cash prizes if you have the time to do it. And since it's once a month, it's pretty often. They have about 6 rounds in total throughout the year. ARML is the biggest national math team competition. So it's composed, so teams of 15 students from the region enter, and they go, so every year San Francisco Bay Area sends usually at minimum 4 teams, at most they've sent like 8 teams, and we all head over to University of Las Vegas for a weekend to participate in the math contest. As mentioned earlier, it's really similar to Math League, so there's an individual round, a team round, a power round, and then a relay round. And so it's definitely a hard and challenging contest. And most people go for the team performance, where your team tries to get first place. So this past year, my team from San Francisco Bay Area on A1, we placed first place in the nation. So that was a huge honor, and it's composed of the average of your team scores or individual scores combined with your team scores and relay scores. And teams from all over the nation participate. I know Exeter sends their own team. San Diego, SoCal send their own teams. Math circles across the nation send their teams. And it's definitely one of the best math contest experiences because you're spending not just the day, but you're like staying over, and like you have to have a roommate, and you're just getting to know each other through other opportunities outside of math, like Frisbee or board and card games, and just really getting to bond with each other, understand more about math, but also learn more about life and not life outside of math. And I would highly recommend anyone that's interested in competitive math, especially if they've done Math Counter AMC, to do this and participate, because it's definitely not the easiest competition, so there's always room to improve. And you just get to meet the best and learn from the best at math for several days. And also you can win a lot of prizes at various levels. I know that our team's going to receive like free TI Inspire CX CASs, which is like $150 values. And if you place well as an individual, like placing top 20 in the nation, ARML sponsor DE Shaw is ridiculously generous with the amount of money they give. So I know like even like 20th place received like $500, and then 15th place received like $1,000, and then moving on to first place, which I think received around like $2,000, $3,000. So this contest definitely pays well, and it's definitely a worthwhile experience. You have to try out for San Francisco Bay Area's team because they're extremely difficult, and really, since SFBA always performs well, they always make sure they have the best team possible. So there's a series of tryouts and practices that you have to attend. They'll base your team placement into A1, A2, A3, and so forth, based on your AMC and Amy scores. And for example, I know Ethan here and Stanley were participants on the team as well. And I'm pretty sure they can attest to how much fun, but also how much of a learning experience it was. And it's definitely not easy math, but it's definitely a big opportunity to put your skills to the test, especially while working with other people in the Bay Area. And then These various tournaments, Stanford Math Tournament or A-Star Math Tournament this past year, Berkeley Math Tournament, Harvard MIT Math Tournament, and Caltech Harvey Mudd. These are math contests created by college students that were involved in these contests as middle and high school students. And then they're held usually at the respective campuses. And these contests can have cash prizes, and these contests tend to be very big as well. I know for Stanford Math Tournament, there are teams that flew over from the East Coast, and as well as from China and North Korea, or sorry, not North Korea, China, South Korea, the Philippines, all sent in teams to participate and place, because that's just how prestigious these contests are. And these contests are very hard as well, on par with the level of difficulty as ARML. And these contests are composed usually of a focus round, where you can pick 1 or 2 tests to take out of various subjects from geometry, algebra, counting and probability, analysis or calculus. And then they also have a general round, a team round, a power round, and then lots of tiebreakers. And a lot of people use this as an opportunity just to see really how good you are, especially since you get a lot of international competition at these contests. Since like you could really see whether you're better than some Chinese team at algebra or something. And there are people that actually can beat them, but usually there's a lot of people that place from China and like the top individuals. And they do sometimes have cash prizes, but they also have plaques and stuff. And so a forewarning, so for contests like HMMT, since you have to fly to MIT and Harvard, the cost can be offsetting. So if you can't afford it, I would just recommend it's not worth it, especially since that cost can be rather costly since it's during winter break as well. But it's definitely a nice experience because you get to meet students across the nation, get to do some math as mentioned before. It's similar to ARML, just with a more international and national presence. And you can also meet the college students that wrote these problems and just get to learn more from math from them. And then going back to the AMC branch, USAMO, USAGMO, you qualify for based on your AMC 10, 12, and your AMY scores. The formula is 10 times your AMY score plus your AMC 10, 12 score. And then if you're in the top 500 students, MMA will contact you and tell you that you qualified for the contest. So these contests are brutal. These are done over 2 days, 4.5 hours per day. It's tackling 3 proof problems. And I know I've definitely been frustrated when I took these contests. It's a huge honor to qualify for this contest because that means you're in the top 250 for the USAMO or top 500 for the USAGMO to take this. The USAGMO is only open to 10th grade and below, and the USAMO is open to anyone who qualifies. And so just a side note, you have to, if you took AMC 12, you can only use your AMC 12 score to qualify for USAMO and not for USAGMO. And likewise, AMC 10 cannot qualify for you for USAMO. It can only qualify you for USAGMO. So, because I know there's definitely been a few mix-ups in the past where someone thought they could just take AMC 10, get a really high score on AMY, and then make USAMO, but no, they were sent to USAGMO. And that's still an honor. And so USAMO, USAGMO, each of the 6 problems is worth 7 points for a total of 42 points. Almost no one gets that full point credit. But if you do well, especially for your age group, solving at least like 2, 3, 4 problems, you may be invited to the prestigious MOP program, which is once a year. It used to be held in Nebraska, but this year it's being held at CMU, where they invite maybe the top 50 scores on USAGMO and USAMO to practice in the camp, and you just train with the professor of the IMO team, as well as several other notable math professors, and just practice proofs. And as my friend who's currently at the program describes it, you're really just doing math for like 6 hours, and then you get burnt out by all the proofs, so you're trying to do anything that does not entail math, like playing Frisbee or card games with others that are just as talented. So this is probably, MOP is probably the best way to bond. And so a lot of people that take USAMO and USAGMO and aspire for more, generally they try their best to make MOP, so that usually entails solving 3 or 4 problems in USAGMO, which already in itself is extremely difficult if you've searched up some of the problems. And it's definitely draining, but if you aspire to do really well at math, you have to go through the USAGMO, USAMO contests. And then once you're at MOP, there's various levels of MOP based on your math skills, and they'll test your proof skills as well consistently every day. You'll have to do more proof problems and so forth just to practice, and this is how they determine the 6 people through MOP that go on to take the prestigious IMO contest. And IMO is the biggest math contest you can have at the high school age level. It's held at some international location once a year, and every country sends in 6 people to form a team that participates in the IMO. So for the US, they determine the 6 people of IMO through MOP, and then they go to participate in IMO, which is in around August. And IMO is just similar to USUMO, but even harder. It's 6 questions. Again, 9 total hours for those 6 questions. You're writing proofs for everything, and all explanations have to be justified, rigorous. They'll have a variety of international coaches look over your proofs and solutions for IMO, give you a score. They grade very harshly on these, and if you do well, you can win like a gold medal, which is probably the biggest achievement in terms of math that you can achieve at the high school level. And colleges love that, but it's ridiculously hard to do. Most people, the IMO team generally is composed of seniors because it takes that long to, since you're competing against others in the US, it's very hard to be that top 6 in the US at math. But it's definitely the highest honor, and if you're aspiring to be really good at math, you aspire to do this and get a gold medal at IMO. And it's definitely very hard, but it's definitely doable if you are of that type. And a few others. So I forgot, I didn't put a slide for this, but USA Mathematical Talent Search is a proof contest, which they have 3 rounds per year. Each round you're given a month to write up proofs to 5-6 problems, and you can use any resources you want from the computer, internet, calculator, programming, as long as you do not contact other people. And this is generally one of the easier proof contests just because you get so much time compared to your normal 4-hour constraint. And you can use any resources, so you could really just Google formulas, use a math program like GeoGebra or Wolfram Alpha to play around with the problem until you can solve it. The problems are relatively solvable, and you can win free t-shirts, a free copy of Mathematica, which costs like $100. Also, very, very nice math books. So it's also the first step in proofwriting, and I would recommend doing this contest because it's free and it's really lenient on its time scheduling, since whenever you have free time, you can choose to attempt it. You can submit partial solved problems for credit, since it's proof-based, and you can win free t-shirts and books. And it's good practice for the USUMO, USACHMO, as well as BAMO contests. And then there's all these contests, but a lot of the times the question is, how do you exactly improve in math and get to the level where you can achieve success in these contests? So the first and foremost important part is really practicing the fundamentals. So the main topics of math are algebra, geometry, number theory, counting and probability. There's a few other contests, or a few other branches like graph theory and stuff, but almost all contests will be based on these 4 basics. And so one thing to note is AMC 10 is based on math that you will only have learned up to the 10th grade level. And then USUMO and USACHMO claim that you will not need any other higher math beyond calculus and pre-calculus. But what this means is that they require a lot more of your basics and fundamentals. So for example, high school geometry would not cut it for the geometry that shows up on USUMO, because while you've learned everything that's quote-unquote possible in a high school geometry or middle school geometry course, that USUMO and USACHMO would take that to an extremely deeper level. There's still countless geometry theorems and formulas that aren't covered in the middle school and high school courses. So that's where you have to learn more and just improve along your base. Because once you have a strong fundamental base of math and with your basic knowledge and theorems, it really just becomes practicing and applying that knowledge to various competitions. And then so that's where you'll always be learning new formulas, theorems, and techniques. There's some that I wish I had learned much earlier, but then only picked up, for example, this year. And so that just makes it a lot slower. And then the biggest aspect is always you just have to practice your knowledge. And art of problem solving has a plethora of rounds. They have like AMCs dating back to the 1970s. They have USAMO, USAGMO tests of all the past years, AMY exams to like the 1980s and so forth. And if you want the round, you can just Google it, and some website, if not Art of Problem Solving, will probably have it. And it's just really important to practice the old rounds, just because you get a feel for the type of problems. You can practice solving the problems, see if you can't solve it, learn from the solution what you did wrong, see which types of problems you're the weakest in, and over time, as you practice, you'll be able to solve more, applying what you did in a previous problem, applying that technique of drawing a certain line in the triangle to applying it to a different problem and solving it. And then, by practicing the previous rounds, you'll also just improve your speed as you go, because you'll get more familiar with these types of problems. And it's like doing multiplication for the first time. It starts out slow, but the more you do it, the easier and the more secondhand knowledge it becomes. And so this is also where going to math camps and programs helps, because they'll teach you a lot of these new formulas and theorems that you never learned before. And so that's really useful for just expanding your base. And then later they'll give you problems to apply that knowledge. And then so in terms of resources, Art of Problem Solving has their own library and collection of stuff. And it's extensive, and if you do all of the books, it definitely helps you a lot. The two most notable books to do are Art of Problem Solving Volume 1 and Volume 2, because those generally cover the vast majority of middle school and high school stuff. And if you can solve every problem in the book correctly by yourself, you're pretty much ready for USAMO, USAGMO level problems. And then another book that's also very good is The Art and Craft of Problem Solving by Paul Zeitz. This book is also very similar to Art of Problem Solving Volume 1 and Volume 2. And I would highly recommend this book as well. This book's more geared towards the proof end of math problems. And then there's also various math classes you can take. For example, Woot, which is online math classes done over Art of Problem Solving, as well as A-Star. They have plenty of their own math prep camps and classes. I can definitely attest that although I haven't done these, a lot of people have, and they've definitely gotten a lot of success off these. So if I would highly recommend doing these programs if you wish to improve in your math skill, and as well as just reading more math books and doing more contests, because participating in more contests will definitely show you more of what do I know, what don't I know, and it really just gives you an opportunity to practice and just learn, and as long as you aspire to get better, you'll find ways to get better at math. I think that's about it. So at this point, I'll just take any questions anyone has regarding math in any field, from contests to classes to research.
Where did you take the linear algebra? Community college?
Yeah, I took it, so at least at Lynbrook, it might be different for different schools, but Lynbrook had, there was a West Valley class for differential equations and multivariable calculus, which they'd offer it, so they offered it to any student that was already done with AP Stats by junior year. And you just had to register through West Valley's program, so I registered as a West Valley student. And then there was a teacher that come over to teach at Lynbrook, the West Valley class, that I know a lot of people did. For me, since I couldn't make that timing, I just took the class at West Valley itself. So I went to West Valley twice a week on Monday and Wednesday nights, and then did the material, took the test, took the final, got an A, and then now that counts as college credit for me.
Have you compared De Anza College and the West Valley College?
I believe the math courses are about the same. It depends on some of the instructors. Like, I know De Anza's instructors gives a lot less homework but has harder tests. Whereas West Valley College, the teacher I had was giving about 2 to 3 hours of homework a day with a lot easier tests.
Okay, in De Anza College they have pre-cal 1, 2, 3, and then they have different kind of calculus. But in the West Valley, they only have like regular math.
It's just different course names. Like Math 4A is multivariable calculus at West Valley, while Math 3 is your regular calculus AB, calculus BC equivalents.
They're all equivalent to the UC and the.
Yeah, UCs will take them for credit for sure, but most privates will take community college credit, but you have to look into that private college. For example, I know Stanford, MIT would take credit. Caltech would not take any credit at all. But Caltech, because Caltech's a bit unique because you have to test for every class you want to skip, regardless of your AP scores or your previous community college credit. But a majority of privates will take the community college as transfer credits, and they'll count them in as well as your AP scores. Yes.
Yeah, can you talk about the high school math club or any difference with the middle school?
Middle school, from what I mean, I can't necessarily speak for all schools since I went to Miller and Lynbrook. Miller's didn't really have a math club. We used to have a class called Math Enrichment, where a lot of people would get exposure to math contests, and you could take math contests that other students at Miller wouldn't. And then Math Counts was your only real quote-unquote official team, where you had to qualify for it. And then I would run practices with the Miller Math Counts team this year, twice a week, doing drills, going over lectures, learning the material to prep them for the contest. High school, usually, almost all schools have a math club. Usually it's like a once a week meeting. I just recommend looking into it. Usually when they have like a club info day or whatever, or if they advertise it. And it's really, I think for those teams, usually you just have to attend it. It varies per school though. Like I know Saratoga, you have to qualify for the math team, and that you can get kicked out if you're not that good at math, but that usually rarely happens. While Lynbrook, it's just, for our math club, it's just if you want to join, you just attend the meetings, and then I'll just be sending out, I would have sent out weekly emails with info about contests. If you wanted to join, you just sign up, and then you take the contest. So it definitely differs per school, and I would just recommend looking into your school, see what their math club's policy is.
Did you use any tutors after school for improving your math?
Personally for me, I didn't, but that was just because my parents were a bit of the mentality of, oh, you can do everything yourself. And that definitely, I would not recommend that because it depends on the type of person you are. It definitely wasn't the type of person for me, and even though I did do all the AOPS books and stuff, and I got better because of it, I think I would have definitely improved a lot more if I had a class like Woot to push me, or something like that, because it really differs per person. Some people can get away with just studying for the SAT on their own, just reading books and stuff, while other people, they learn a lot more when when someone else who knows the material already has taught it. But for me, Math Circles was a good way to learn. Doing all of the Art of Problem Solving books was a good way to learn. And then also just attending all these math contests, learning. Since there were so many good people at Lynbrook that were above me, like that were only like one grade above that I knew since Miller, I got to work with them on math contests. They helped me when I couldn't solve problems, and that really just helped me get a lot better. Yes?
So when you solve the really difficult math problem, and if at the initial attempt you could not solve it, what would be your approach? Would you spend quite some time to study yourself trying to solve, or would you just look at the answer directly?
It depends. So it's a bit of both. So like for example, math counts drills, those tend to be short, quick questions, right?
Yeah.
Usually it's solve it, check your answer, see whether you got it right or wrong, and then usually, at least my mentality is if I got it wrong, I'd go back to my work, check what I could have done wrong, see if I could figure out how to get to the right answer, and if I couldn't, then I read the solution. And then for proof contests, those are a bit different. Those take a lot more time. Usually it's somewhat similar to research. You just try one angle, doesn't work, try another, you have to keep trying angles, and then for proof contests, at least with past contests, you can see the solution if you're really stuck. Research, that's the problem with research. You don't have a solution to that. So you could just keep attempting stuff and you won't necessarily get anywhere. But sometimes you do, and then that's when you get good success. Proof contests are definitely a lot harder to practice for. You just really have to be at that level where you can solve the problems if you spend enough time looking at it and just trying different stuff. And that takes some time to get to. Usually, that's where USAMS is very good, because USAMS was extremely difficult for me at the beginning. But then over time, like after you spend a week just thinking about a problem, thinking about different strategies you could do to transform the problem, or just make it easier, find a smaller version of the problem to solve, it becomes a lot easier. And then there's just that aha moment come like a week or so where you finally figured out how to solve that problem, and then you can write your solution to it. depends. So middle school, I spent maybe 2 to 3 hours a day just doing rounds and stuff. In addition, and then there's also like the weekly math counts practices. High school, I got a lot busier, but for me, again, I can't necessarily say this will be the same for everyone, but high school was pretty easy for me because I had a very strong math counts base. So that made it a lot easier for adjusting to high school contests, especially since I was doing a lot of the high school contests in middle school. So I was already adjusted to it. So for the most part, it was mostly occasionally improving my base, sometimes learning new formulas, learning new techniques. And then for the most part, for most contests, I just do several rounds of practice of that previous contest, of the past years of that contest, for maybe like the past 1 or 2 months, like maybe 1 or 2 rounds per week, since I was still really busy in high school. So then, like for example, for AMC 1012, I already had the base since I've done AMC 12 since 8th grade, and then so it's really just keep learning your new techniques, keep improving your geometry, and then just do like 1 or 2, 3, 4 rounds a week of previous problems to practice. For those of you that aren't at that level though, you need to first get to that level of have that strong fundamental base that you could solve any problem given the time, and then it's just practice, practice, practice. Yes?
How did you study math at elementary school?
Elementary school, this was partially because my dad was in charge of the math club. I think there was like a contest called like Math League or something, and then there was Math Olympiads there. My dad was very aspiring, so to speak. He was having me do math count states rounds in 3rd grade and teaching me algebra then with, I can't necessarily say that was the most successful. They had me attend math circles starting in 5th or 6th grade, and that was probably the best exposure. So for elementary school students, you can try teaching them upper level math, but usually that takes like even teaching algebra 1 or geometry takes time to adjust to. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend teaching it at such a young age. Rather, I think it's better just to go to math circles because that gives you exposure of applications of math. And while some of the math circle stuff tends to be it can be rather complex. Like I know I did not get able summations because I was learning that in 6th grade, but they're tending to be more application oriented at Stanford and San Jose State. So like they try to make it that everyone can understand the math. And they also have their own math circles separately for elementary school students so that everyone at that level can understand the math. And it's still above what you would learn at school. And you can still improve through that.
Can you talk about the difference between the math circles like Stanford versus Berkeley?
Berkeley's is generally considered the most prestigious just because they've had like Evan O'Dorney, who was an IMO gold medalist, come out of there. But he was a one in a kind. I haven't been to math circles for several years now because it's a large time commitment. I mostly went from 6th grade through 9th, 10th grade. A lot of them tended to occasionally be the same because Stanford, like speakers at San Jose State would sometimes give a speech at Stanford the same week. So generally you're not missing out too much on content, but it does vary sometimes. Depends on the environment. Berkeley's is generally considered the strongest, but it's also the most inconvenient, especially for me since I live in this area, because it was a 1-hour Tuesday commute, so I'd have to leave water polo sports practice at 5 p.m. just to make the math circle at 7 and then get home at 10 and then start homework. So that can be really taxing. And then Stanford's and San Jose State's I think are on about the same level. It just becomes more of which is more accommodating to your schedule. Whether you can make it on Wednesdays or I believe Thursdays nights better. And you could attend both and you could gain more, but usually you won't be missing out too much just by attending one of them. And then Berkeley also has they've published 2 books that have like an entire transcript of the entire math circle stuff, so you could also purchase the book. These 2 books, it's called A Decade of the Berkeley Math Circle, and they pretty much contain info on all the lectures given at Berkeley Math Circle, so that is also very useful and definitely a nice alternate to just going to the math circle. You could instead just go to Stanford or San Jose States, save the gas, save the time, and then just read, study, learn from these books.
So how do you practice math count in elementary school? Is there any online resource?
Math counts, you can Google pretty much any round they'll have it online. They claim to only release like the previous round. So they released last year's rounds for Sprint Target State. So if you really want to, you could start making a collection. But actually, let's try this. So if I pick a specific year, usually you can find on some website, you can usually find the solution. For example, this is the 2011 State Sprint Round, which isn't formally released on their website, but if you Google it, there's always a website that has like that specific round. And then, for example, up here we have the state solutions. And then then you can usually find your round. It takes a bit more manual work, but you can usually find the round. And then there's also people on Art of Problem Solving that have occasionally, although quote unquote illegally according to Math Counts, they've published like entire databases of problems since like 1980s. And I myself have a database of that, so if you really want a database of all the problems, I can send you it. It would. Where is it? So, like for example, I have this Math Counts folder, and it has problems dating back to 1984, and then I've been updating it since every year with the new problems that come out.
Can you share your email address?
Yeah, vc1165@gmail.com, and then just send me an email, and then I can send you the Dropbox link to all of them. I'll write it out. Yes.
Do you think taking college level math courses helps with your way of thinking and helps improving your math comprehension scores?
I would say college. So the thing, usually most math contests don't involve college math. Very few do. For example, the analysis round, the calculus round on Stanford Math Tournament and Berkeley Math Tournament might use that. For the record, I would say skipping. The advantage of skipping math generally is that you don't have to necessarily. It's at least like one advantage as well of doing math contests. Like if you're good at math contests, you'll usually do well in math in high school, and that lets you skip math, and then you can just get more college credits. But I wouldn't say you don't have to do college courses to help you in math contests. It's more math contests will help you do those college courses, and then get credit. And then so also I remember there was a question about if you tend to be bored during math class because it tends to be too easy, that's where I'd recommend skipping to the next math level. Or what I tended to do, since I didn't have that option in middle school, I was just reading like about pre-calculus in Algebra 1 and also just doing AMC problems in my spare time. Since I'd finished the assigned classwork and homework in maybe 10-20 minutes for something like geometry, and then spend the rest of the time just practicing AMC problems. Yes?
So for Limbrook Math Club, so if the girl is join other club, do they they have to participate all the?
No, you don't have to participate in all. It's just recommended you attend at least all the meetings, as you would for any club. And then at least for Limbrook, it's just I sent everyone an email saying, oh, we have such and such math contest coming up. If you would like to register, click here. The cost for each contest is so and so. And then if they wanted to do it, they do it. Otherwise, it's fine.
Yeah. So you participate in so many math competition and lead the club. Do you still have time to join other clubs?
Yeah, I was still involved with French Honor Society, Science Olympiad, Science Club, CS Club. So, I still had extra duties as president, so that was a bit more of a burden. But for the average person, you maybe use a few weekends attending contests, and then Tuesday meetings.
What will be your major?
Computer engineering.
Which school?
UC San Diego.
You mentioned the National Math Summer Camp. Have you went there, and do you think it's helpful?
Math Olympiad program, MOP.
Yeah, it's something.
I never made it myself, just because proofs are very hard for me. But like a lot of people that do like achieve great success in math contests, like that helps you become a lot better. And like I would definitely recommend aspiring to go there because that's what gets you truly good at math. Especially if you love math, like that's like it's like a dream home for some people because all you do is math all day.
Yeah, so the feedback you heard is pretty good. Not boring doing that math all day?
I mean, for some people it is. Like some people are good at math but they hate math. Especially after taking USAGMO, which can kill people because 9 hours of math will you'll either enjoy doing it or you'll hate it. And I mean, if I qualified, it would have been. If I ever made it, it would have been nice to go. But it's very hard to qualify. But it's definitely doable. It's a lot easier the younger you are, because they tend to be more lenient with your score. I believe one of the previous scorings was like, if you're under 9th grade and you scored at least a 14 on USAGMO, so at least 2 problems out of the 6 right, you could attend MOP. While you had to score, if you were a 10th grader, you had to score at least 4 problems right or something like that. And then that's a huge deal. And then it's also a bit geared to be a bit easier for girls to get in. You needed only like a 15, so 2 problems plus like a little partial credit this year to qualify. Yes.
And so what happens
if we'd have weekly meetings and we'd usually be talking about various topics of math that wouldn't be covered. So this year we focused a lot on contest prep. So we'd cover topics that would show up on problems for AMC and AMY. And then we also had a few various other talks about stuff that was just math but not covered in high school. So stuff, for example, like fractals or topology. You're not going to learn about that in high school math, but through Math Club, it's an opportunity just to learn more about math. And then otherwise, we were running our own math contests, or otherwise, if there was a math contest on that Tuesday, we wouldn't hold a meeting. But usually it was either math contests, prep for math contests, or math topics you won't learn about in high school. Yes?
When you were smaller, like in elementary and middle school, did you like doing that?
Yeah. Especially because I was a speed guy, and elementary and middle school math is all geared around speed. High school, it's still sometimes geared around speed, but not as much, especially once you get to proof level. Then they care more about how well you write.
So who will keep the talks in the math club?
Usually it's math officers, but at least it depends per club, but usually officers give a talk. They can sometimes get speakers to get a talk, or just members of the club that want to talk on a certain topic.
So you mean office is students?
Yeah. Math clubs are generally student run. Math circles are where you get your professors to run it.